Good morning, everyone, or whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to the first of the AOS online poster sessions. This is a new thing, trying to do a poster session over the internet. So I appreciate your patience and your willingness to participate in this process. Martin, as the chat monitor, could you read the official starting script?
Yes, of course. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, afternoon, evening, and welcome. The circumpolar Arctic is the contemporary home to many different indigenous peoples. As researchers and others who are working in or residing in the Arctic, we recognize these lands and waters as the most unceded traditional homeland of the indigenous peoples. It is the responsibility of each of us to learn, know, and gain better understanding of the indigenous people and the cultures with which we engage. With that in mind, let's engage in open-minded community building collaboration as described in the AOS2020 Code of Conduct. I will share the link in the chat window now. Some logistics before we start. You joined with your camera off and your audio muted. If you unmute yourself at any time, please remember to remute after speaking. I don't think we have phone users on the group. Well, we ask you to stay muted because we can hear your typing. We can hear everything you say when you're in the home, your kids running around. And if you have the option, please use headphones or a headset to prevent echoing. If you want to see the Zoom controls, just hover over the window. You can also chat with other participants and see the list of participants. And if you have a question, you can type your question into the chat window and they will be read out loud. And if you need help, message either me or everybody in the chat tool, or use the raise hand, which you can find on the participant list. You want to join the discussion, unmute yourself and speak up, or raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you, or you can send a chat message to the group everyone and the moderator. So we will read the question out loud. If you don't have a mic, please type into the chat and I will read your question out loud. And this presentation will be recorded. A video file, audio file, slides, and relevant links will be available on the agenda tab of the Arctic Observing Summit website, which I shall also paste in the chat now. And now I give it back to Alice for introduction and welcome of the speakers.
Fantastic, thank you. Here I can turn my video on so I actually exist here. So today's poster session, the plan is that we'll go through the list of posters that we have in this room. Each presenter can give a quick 1 to 2 minute overview. And then the idea is to then open up the room to discussion and questions, much like it would be in a normal poster session, except that we are 9 posters all kind of crammed together. So we would appreciate any feedback you have on the process. This is obviously the first time that we're doing this in this format. So I think it will be a learning experience for everyone. But so we'll go through the list just in the order that they're listed on the AOS Poster Rooms Google Sheet. So Caitlin would be the first one on there. I'm happy to either share the screen or share my screen with your poster on it, or you can share your screen with your poster on it, whatever you would prefer. So how about we default to you share your poster unless you would like me to, in which case I have them all pulled up so I can go ahead and share it if you would prefer. Do we have Caitlin on? Do I have the correct room? Yes. Oh, wait, no, I don't. Okay, yes. All right, how about Leonid?
Should be here. You were looking at the right room.
Yes, okay. How about Gonzalo?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to share your poster, or would you like to share your poster?
Yeah, if you want, you can share it because it's only, in fact, a full screen, I hope. So it will be straightforward.
Yes. Let's see. Yep. Is that the right one?
It's not popping up. Yeah.
How about now?
This is the, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's
Great.
it. Yeah, you can leave it as it is. Yeah. Thank you very much. So good morning, everyone. So I will be very briefly presenting on my poster. Essentially, the idea is to give an overview of the work we are doing in the framework of T-Mosaic and also of Nunatariuk. But so, in fact, of Nunatariuk, I wanted also to call your attention for T-Mosaic and for the session that we are holding this afternoon at 5 p.m. jointly with ISA CCI Permafrost. And you are invited all to join in if you search at the ASSW website. But anyway, so Nunatariuk is a project which aims essentially at studying coastal changes in the Arctic across different sites in the Arctic, including the Beaufort Sea coast, Greenland, Svalbard, and also Eastern Siberia. And it's a project that aims not only at the physical component of the coast, but also at the human component of the coast. So there is a significant part of societal impacts that are also being addressed. And within Nunatariuk, we are working the University of Lisbon team together with the Alfred Wegener Institute and with the Geological Survey of Canada. And more recently, also, you will see in the T-Mosaic presentation also with big AOS. We are working on the monitoring of coastal erosion in the Beaufort Sea coast. And in this poster, I essentially highlight the three methodologies that we are using. We are studying the area from the Canadian Alaska border in the west limit of our study area, as you see in this window in number 1. And in 2018, we managed to have a survey specially done for our project by the Pleiades satellite, a French satellite with a very high resolution. We have imagery with about 1 meter resolution, and so we've made the acquisition of the whole coast from the border to the Mackenzie Delta to Tuktoyaktuk. And in this way, we were able to compare the coastline change with the surveys done by Steve Solomon in 2005, present in 2005, and in the Yukon coast with the surveys done by Anna Irgang in 2015. So we are updating on the coastal change rates. There will be a paper coming out soon on this on the Frontiers special issue that is coming up on coastal erosion. And in 2020, we will have acquisitions planned for the Tuk Peninsula and also in other areas further to the east. We are also picking up on the Geological Survey of Canada long-term monitoring site. You can see in point 2 in the lower part of the poster. And what we are doing is from sites that were originally monitored using transects by the GPS, as you see in the picture with one of our colleagues holding a pole. So he is serving with the GPS the coastline. We also do transects and also the bluff top. But presently, we are also repeating these sites, but using drones. So with the drones, we aim at very high resolution surveys with the production of digital surface models, which allow for a better or an improved assessment of both coastal change rates, but also volumetric change rates. And we were planning to do a repetition in 2020 in the summer. We don't know yet if this is possible or not. If it's not possible, essentially due to the COVID-19, we will do it next year. And you see an example of an area which is retreating very quickly with the bluff position in 2011. This is Cape Point. And you can see that there is over 80 meters of erosion in only about 7 years. So it's a huge amount of erosion that is going on. To complement these observations that we are able to do at an annual or biannual rate, and which are also possible to do with very high resolution satellite imagery, optical satellite imagery, but which are constrained by clouds. We are also doing very high resolution microwave imagery monitoring in the 0.3, using basically TerraSAR-X imagery, and also the new Spanish satellite called PAZ, P-A-Z, which allow us to have microwave images with a resolution of about 70 centimeters, and with intervals of about 11 days to 2 weeks. And we are using them to assess the erosion rates at much higher spatial and temporal resolution, or essentially temporal resolution, than with the optical imagery. So this was it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Does anybody have a quick question while we switch over posters? Okay. How about Pedro? Are you? Yes, I see that you're on. Would you like me to share the poster, or would you?
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, you can show it for me, no problem. Yeah, good.
All right, let me know when you want me to scroll down.
Okay, thanks very much. So in this presentation, I will talk a bit about monitoring thermocar response in subarctic Canada using unmanned aerial vehicles. Our motivation is to understand better the spatial and temporal dynamics of thermokarst lakes in wider areas using synergistic drone imagery and also satellite imagery. We are focusing essentially on lakes with area below 10,000 square kilometers, and we are trying to link the biogeochemical properties with the satellite reflectance data acquired by satellites and also drones. In this presentation, I will focus essentially on our drone work. We can see that our study areas are in eastern Hudson Bay, in subarctic Canada, from the continuous permafrost zone, where we have a site called BGR, to the sporadic permafrost zone, where we have a site called QUAG. Now we can see the methodology. Maybe you can put a bit below the slide, please. Yeah. So we can see here in the stage 1 that we performed the flights with the drones, where we acquired the information in a very high resolution, spatial resolution. Then we just process the data using structure from motion softwares, driving the point clouds and using interpolation in order to have digital surface models. And then we perform that data analysis using GIS softwares and using and driving some analysis related with surface characteristics and also with shadows projection. We are also concerned about how the shadows can influence the spectral behavior of the lakes, and that is going to be very important to understand in order to be capable to map the lakes in wider areas and use satellite imagery to monitor them. Now we can see the results, maybe a bit up. Yeah, thanks a lot. We can see in the results that we have in 2015, we performed a flight plan using a Canon camera and we were able to acquire the information in 26, having 26 centimeters per pixel, and not only for true color composites, but also for the near infrared composite. However, this was only a filter of the camera and is not really the spectral behavior and reflectance of the surface. In 2017, we performed the same flight plan using this time a multispectral Sequoia camera that we were capable to obtain information in the green band, red edge band, and near infrared band, and we can see that the wakes responds differently to these different wavelengths, which is quite interesting also to understand better the spatial variability of the thermokarst wakes. And then I have here some examples of change detection in the other study area called BGR, where we can see some fight bands from since 2015 to 2019. And we can see that some pulsars are degrading. The towing of the permafrost, and we can see that some cover of the wake change, which is also very important, and shows that these transformations of the optical properties of thermokarst wakes maybe can link to the biogeochemical properties of the thermokarst wakes. This is part of a bigger program where we it's part of a project from the Portuguese Power Program, which is called Tolpons, where we also aim to not only sample the wakes using multiparametric probes, but also sample the soils and understand the distribution of vegetation in these areas in order to better understand the biogeochemical cycles in these thermokarst landscapes. I would like to also thank the Portuguese Foundation for Science and Technology for this, for funding me for my research grants, and also the University of Val, the Center for Geographical Studies of the University of Val, and also the Centinel North for funding some of the fieldwork activities. Thanks a lot. If you have any questions, I'm pleased to answer you.
Fantastic, thank you. We can do, and again, if there's a quick question, we can take that while we switch speakers. Annette, are you? Yes, you seem to be on.
Yeah, and I will try to share my screen.
Okay, I will stop sharing then.
Mm-hmm. So,
all right, you should be able to share your screen now.
yeah, I'm just trying. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. So within the framework of the European Space Agency Climate Change Initiative, a number of ECVs, essential climate variables, are addressed on a global scale, and specifically those where you can use satellite data to get the information. And recently, permafrost has been added to this list of ECVs. Well, it's not really so straightforward to use satellite data for this subground phenomenon. But what we can do, we can use a model, which is using land surface temperature, snow information, land surface properties to get some information about the temperatures in the ground. And specifically, we try to derive the depth of the active layer, as well as the temperature of the permafrost in the ground, and also as a derivative permafrost extent. This is validated using specifically borehole data, GTNB data from around the Arctic, and also this from the CALM network, from the active layer thickness measurements. What you can see here, what is red, it's the link to get the data. So what is already published is a first version, a test version from 2003 to 2017. In a few months, there will be records from 1980 to 2018. And also in addition to the download possibility, there's also a visualization possibility as part of a WebGIS that we developed within another ESA project, which was called Globe Permafrost. Now on this poster, all what is red, there are some links here behind where you can access the information, and I will in a minute also in the chat copy the link where you can directly go to these time series of active layer thickness and ground temperature. And if you are more interested, today at 5 p.m. there is, it's still on the list, on the program of the Arctic Science Summit Week. You will have a T-mosaic and CCI permafrost workshop, where I will at the beginning make a live demonstration of this WebGIS. Yeah, and unfortunately now soon I have to switch to another poster room because I have a parallel poster in this room 1, where I will switch now, but I will come back also later for questions. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Steingrimmer, do we have you on the call? All right, Gonzalo, we have you again.
Okay, thank you for hearing me again. I will be fast. If you can open it. So this poster is linked to the previous one. I mean, in fact, it's a continuation of the previous one, and it relates to our research with the Geological Survey of Canada. It shows up the studies we are doing in collaboration with 2 communities, which are Tuktoyaktuk and also Polotuk. They are both located in the Beaufort Sea coast, as you can see in the map on the upper left side. And I will focus on what we do in Tuktoyaktuk. So we were doing a very high resolution mapping with UAV. It took us, in fact, it was done along 2 summers, and we were able to map the whole settlement. So it's a quite huge area. It's about 10,000 aerial photos. The survey was done with RTK. Almost all the survey was done with RTK UAV with ground control points, and the objective was to produce a very high resolution orthomosaic, which you can see there in this image, and it's also in association with the hamlet of Tuktoyaktuk. We have provided this map to the community for their own planning purposes. The map will be also provided in GIS, so they can use it for their own planning. And we have also produced a digital surface model of the area. The main objective of this digital surface model is to improve flood analysis in the area and also coastal erosion. There was a LiDAR survey, a previous LiDAR survey a few years ago, but with this highest resolution survey, which has about 10 centimeters per pixel and about 10 centimeters of vertical accuracy, we aim to improve the LiDAR survey and also to update it in order to include also issues related to thaw settlement of the ground. And we have a master student working on flood modeling of the area, essentially associated with storm surges that occur frequently during the summer. We collaborating with the hamlet. We visited several sites which have been flooded in past years, and the description of the sites and the flood levels is integrated in the GIS. There is a map which you see in the middle, just on the right side of the orthomosaic, which shows some notes that we're taking in the field and introducing in GIS. We also collect very accurate positioning of all the drainage infrastructure in order to better assess how the drainage occurs from the different lakes and also between the different urban areas. And this will be part of the master's thesis of Daniel Pinheiro from the University of Lisbon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have one more poster on the list, Brian Duncan.
Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, I'm happy to share unless you would like to share it on your own screen.
Oh, no, please share.
Okay.
Okay. So my name is Brian Duncan. Most people, first of all, I'm at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. It's near Washington, D.C. in the United States. And most people don't know me at all for working with Arctic processes. but I was trained at NASA to help lead a group called Changes in the Arctic Boreal System, or CABS. It was an internal NASA group to encourage NASA people who work on Arctic processes to work together. And I had done some work concerning the long-range transport of pollution to the Arctic in the past. So I became involved in this group, and I ended up leading a review article called Space-Based Observations for Understanding Changes in the Arctic Boreal Zone. And it came out in, I believe it was October, but it officially came out in formatted form in January. There were 40 co-authors on this, and we looked at a number of different ABZ processes, whether it's, for instance, land ice or permafrost or air pollutants. And for each of these various processes or Arctic Boreal Zone variables, we asked 5 questions. We provided the answers. Why is observing that ABZ variable important? What suborbital observations do we have of the historical state of that ABZ variable? What is the historical and current state of satellite observations of that variable? What important properties are we currently missing in the satellite observing network? And then what are recommendations for an improved, more comprehensive observing strategy going forward? So this has a very NASA slant to it. And I won't go into all of the summary of recommendations. We had quite a few, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Fantastic, thank you. And we missed earlier on the first run through a couple of the posters that we didn't have people on for, including Steingrima. But I believe Karin said that she'd step up and present. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Karin Larsen. So I was actually, yeah, it's me up in the left corner there. So I was not able to attend the real meeting, but now that this has turned into an online meeting, I'm able to present here. Steingrima was still supposed to do this presentation, so I'm sorry I haven't prepared, but I can say a few words about this poster here. It's on the Atlantic inflow across the Greenland-Scotland Ridge, where we have since the mid-90s monitored the inflow at 3 different sections, Atlantic inflow to the Arctic. So to the left here, you can see the 3 inflow branches, the Icelandic branch just north of Iceland, the Iceland-Faroe branch north of Faroes, and then the inflow between Faroes and Shetlands. And if you scroll a bit down, yes, thank you, that's good. That was a bit too far. If you can have, stop there, thank you. So this inflow here has been constant actually for all this observational period here. But we have used a lot of money on doing all these observations because they are very expensive with all these HCP or instrumentation that we have used. So for many years now also we have tried to optimize both with respect to instruments, but also the quality of the estimates that we have. So to the right here we have the inflow branch north of Iceland, and there they have had a number of HCPs, or they started out with the on-current meters, but then later they have deployed HCPs and have now found out that they can monitor this inflow here using 1 or 2 HCPs. They also tested using altimetry data, but it has not turned to be very good. And I suppose this that analysis will be soon in a paper that will be submitted later this spring. Okay, if you then scroll down, then we have the 2 other branches here to the left, the inflow between Iceland and Faroes. Here we also have had a number of HCPs on this section here, but more recently we have calibrated these HCP data against altimetry and found out that the altimetry can fairly well be used in the estimate of this volume flux here. But we also want to know where the interface is between the Atlantic water and the Arctic water. And here our analysis has showed that pies are very good at estimating this interface. So here, for the future, our monitoring here will be based on the altimetry data, CTD sections, and 2 to 3 pies, and then only 1 HCP mooring. So both more cost-effective, but also a more reliable estimate of the volume transports here. And then to the right, we have the inflow between the Faroes and Scotland. Here also we have a lot of HCP moorings along the section here. But back in 2013, a paper was published here also using altimetry data to estimate the transports here. But we think that we can still do better and maybe use a long track altimetry. And there's also a ferry, the Norona, almost crossing the same section that we have the observations on. So we will try to integrate a lot of data here to get a better estimate of the transports here, and also more cost effective. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Hello, do you hear me?
Oh, yes, are you here, Secretary?
I am here. I got the wrong link to this meeting, so I just got the right link to it.
Okay, yeah, so, I don't know if you have something to add now. I presented the
post. You have presented it, of course.
Yeah, okay.
I tried millions of times to log in, but then I got the right link.
Okay, very good.
So I don't think I will add anything then, but I am here if you have questions for me.
Yep.
So
wonderful.
Thank you, Karin.
Welcome. All right. So we had a few people that were missing on our first time through, and it does seem like there was an issue with links. Does anybody? Did I miss anyone who would like to present a poster? All right. So at this point, we can open up the room for discussion. And I have all of the posters in the session up in my various tabs here. So it's easy for me to switch between them as discussion goes. So I guess to start things off, I have a question. A couple of you are using drones for various purposes. How was that working for you? And do you feel like the technology has gotten mature enough to be a fairly reliable field tool?
Shall I answer that?
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Whoever has a thought. Go for it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. A bit lost between my two screens and all these windows popping up. Yeah, I think they are quite mature. In fact, the drone technology and the cameras and are developing really fast, and it's difficult to keep the pace and to follow up. But I think they are quite mature. Of course, it depends a bit on the type of drone that you use, and it is good. It is very important always to bring a backup drone when you are in the field, especially in areas where it's logistically so complicated. So our surveys are done mainly using fixed wing drones, as you see in the photo in the lower part. We are using, I mean, there are different brands, but we use the EBs, which are quite reliable with RTK. And we found that even by using, normally we use our own GNSS station stationed by the drone, and then we post-process the data. And one of the things that we found out when doing the monitoring at these coastal sites, they are retreating so fast that many of the benchmarks that were left there by researchers in previous seasons, small sticks on the permafrost, they are gone. So we couldn't really find them. And in fact, using the PPK system and allowing for the base station to stay there measuring between 1 and 2 hours and then post-processing afterwards was enough to have an accuracy of about 10 centimeters, which is quite good. So I think that the answer is yes. But of course, it will very much depend on the type of equipment you are using and how experienced are you with using the equipment. So good planning and a large number of batteries, ways to power up the batteries, and a couple of drones with a backup one would be important. We also think that drones are excellent for ground truthing. So it allows you from going from point measures, which were more normal in the past, and you can use them as ground truthing due to the very high resolution of the imagery.
Fantastic. Sorry, Pedro, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, maybe I would like to add something related with the multispectral data acquired by the cameras that are incorporated in UAVs. Maybe there is some work to do related with this. I'm not really an expert in reflectance sensors and so on, and multispectral sensors, but I could notice doing the field work and exploring the data that sometimes there are some issues related with clouds passing by the field area that you are surveying, and that can influence the reflectance that you are obtaining from the ground surface, and these effects will have influence in the spectral behavior acquired, and you can obtain different spectral behaviors depending if you have an open sky or a cloudy sky. So I think it's something that we should improve in the future related with the irradiance sensors that are in the cameras nowadays. But yeah.
Thanks. Does anyone have other questions for any of the posters? Well, if and when you do, you can either add them to the chat box or just chime in. But in the meantime, since this is the Arctic Observing Summit, and this room captures a pretty wide range of observations and types of science, I have a kind of general question for the group, which is how would better either information sharing or data sharing practices, or just better communication about what other observations and whether campaigns are ongoing, how would that help your science? And do you think there are opportunities, or the flip side of that, do you think there are opportunities where you could be sharing the work that you're doing with a wider community? And I'm happy to jump to anyone. Go ahead, Brian. I think you might be on mute if you are in fact trying to talk.
Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking, the one thing from a NASA perspective, the satellite perspective, is in the review article that we didn't focus on suborbital networks or these field campaigns, except from the perspective of helping to validate the satellite data or to observe things that we couldn't observe from space. And so we did talk about, in the review article, we did talk about the possibility of UAVs. But I don't have anything specifically to say other than if you collect data, it would be very helpful, at least for the satellite people who do validation, to have the access to that data. Because it's not just validating, it's also helping to interpret what we're seeing.
Do you feel like the issue is access or knowing about to access the data?
Well, to be honest, you know, I've been involved in CABS now for about 4 or 5 years, so I've been trying to come up to speed on the Arctic. And the one thing I did learn, there are a number of people working on Arctic processes. There are a lot of organizations out there, and for me, I'm finding, I always found it very difficult to try to figure out who was doing what. Where should I go for this data set or that data set? And if I do happen to have my own data set, which of the many different organizations should I try to approach to give them that data set? So I've always found that a bit overwhelming. And maybe somebody who's been more involved in this community for decades, it would be second nature to them. But for somebody newer like me, it's not so second nature. I actually find it somewhat confusing to know where to go, who to reach out to.
Can I also comment?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. Thanks for this question and also for Brian's comment, because this is one of the issues which we that normally work at a more local to regional scale think that our data would be of wider use. That's what I meant when I meant about the ground truthing. And one of the things that we are trying to do, or we would like to see implemented in the future, and it's one of the topics of the T-Mosaic remote sensing team, is trying to find a way to make available all the drone data that is being collected across the Arctic, because there is a huge amount of data starting to build up, and as projects fade away or change, this data may be lost quite quickly. The main problem here is not organizing the database itself. I think it's essentially a problem related to disk space, and because the data occupies really the files are really huge. We are speaking about a project. This project, for instance, in Tuktoyaktuk, has very easily about 100 gigabytes or more of information, because we are talking about 3D point clouds, the raw footage and everything. So, but it would be really important to find a solution for this and to make this available for the wider community. Not only the aerial photos themselves, but also the multispectral data, which is of much wider use. Thank you. So just adding up, if I can.
Yeah.
So if anyone has a solution for this, we would be very happy to collaborate. And please feel free to become involved in T-Mosaic, in the Remote Sensing Action Group. You can find some more information in the website, or you can also come to the meeting that we will have today at 5 p.m. GMT. I think it's 5 p.m. GMT. I'm a bit lost now about the time zones.
Yeah, I think we're all living in some amorphous time zone, roughly associated with GMT.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any thoughts related to this data sharing and access issue? Does anybody have any success stories of being able to share project data? Well, that's a heartening round of crickets on that one. Do any of the poster presenters have questions or things they'd like to talk about with the other posters? It sounds like somebody is whispering. So if you're trying to speak, you may need to get closer to your mic. Okay. Well, Karen and Stengrumer, since we have both of you on, you had mentioned in, if I can find it, in looking at the inflow between Faroes and Scotland, that there was thought to work with the Neurona ferry. Could you tell us more about that process and kind of how that ship of opportunity might work for you?
Well, I can try. I'm Karen here. It's our Scottish colleagues who are mainly working on this, and there has been a PhD student who has been looking into these data and also the along track altimetry, because the Neurona ferry almost follows one of these along track lines. So I don't know really into detail what kind of analysis has been done there, but I know they plan to submit a paper soon on this. But we have also seen by others, Tom Rosby, who's I think is the main person behind the Neurona idea of having an HCP. So he and others have published some papers, at least, also on this data here. So if we can integrate both the Neurona data with altimetry and with the HCPs, because the Neurona does not, her data, she cannot go all the way to the bottom, and she does not monitor all the time, and there has been some issues with data quality, especially in winter when there are high seas. But if we can utilize all these various data and get a good data product out of that, I think that is the main aim. I don't know if that, yeah,
maybe we can add also that you get much more detail when you do a vessel-mounted ADCP. So that is something you can also learn from, since with the moorings and the altimetry, you only see the very large scale. You get a large scale view of the circulation, but here you can see different eddies and more small scale features that could be helpful also.
Sounds great. Has anybody else used Vessels of Opportunity or something similar?
Well, there was also this ship going from Denmark to the Greenland, to West Greenland, to Nuuk, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They had vessel-mounted ADCP, but that was south, further south. I don't know if that's ongoing anymore, but there were several years at least when this was done. So, but I don't know if it has continued.
Yeah, I don't know either if it's continued, but there's a paper, I think, by Caitlin Childers et al.
Mm-hmm.
A few years back, where they have processed those data. And, yeah.
Great. Does anyone else have any other questions for poster presenters or general discussion topics? Annette, since you seem to be back in now, how has it been working with these essential climate variables? Do you, since a lot of it, or some of the AOS working groups are talking about essential Arctic variables, do you feel like there's important lessons that come out of working with these kind of more globally defined climate variables that we could apply to the Arctic?
Well, now this essential climate variables, well, they have been defined by GCOS, and there has been recently a thorough, or they started a thorough review process on these parameters, also for permafrost. Because so far they have been defined, or what the type of products could be, that has been defined based on in situ measurements only. And that was designed in a way that it fits the requirements that you can put towards borehole measurements and or probing of active layer thickness in situ. So everything, how it was defined was for point locations. And it was not designed for gridded data sets. And this is at the moment being reviewed. So you need to think about the type of the data source in the, well, how you phrase, or what you put into these specifications. Because there needs to be a certain accuracy that this information, the data should have. And that depends on the measurement technique. And that is, of course, much different, quite different from when you use satellite data compared to a temperature sensor in a borehole. So this is one of the issues that we have been facing here. So to meet these officially defined requirements, which were targeted to something, to other types of data than satellite data.
Thanks. And so if it's point defined data that then needs to be kind of restructured to allow for satellite data, I imagine that perhaps not the permafrost example, but the different, for a different variable, it might need further definition still to allow for, say, community observations or something more organic.
Yeah, well, it has actually, doesn't really seem to be possible that you broaden that for a certain parameter. So that's very problematic. But the idea is now to introduce different parameter types, so that we have like the depth of the active layer from in situ measurements, and then there's another one, thaw depth, a gridded thaw depth, which is separate. And then the same for ground temperature, or that you have this, I think at GCOS it's defined as a thermal state of permafrost, which is defined for boreholes. And then, so what we're now trying to introduce here with GCOS is to have a gridded ground temperature in parallel to the in situ type of data. That has already been done for other parameters. So this process is at the moment just starting for permafrost. And this discussion process, this is still online, I think. So if you go to the GCOS web page, and it has only been the chat or the comment tool has been closed only last week, but all the comments are online. And so you can look at that, how people engaged with this definition project, definition process. And the question is how this, I haven't really heard too much yet about the Arctic variables, but I guess there will be also some kind of public process in how to define these Arctic variables.
Great, thanks. Anybody else have any questions for anyone? So as it stands, we have another hour of the poster session, or at least that the poster session is open. If people have further discussion or any further questions they would like to ask, now would be a great time. But if nobody has anything else that they want to talk about, you can also filter out and go check out some of the other poster rooms.
Alice, can I make just one announcement not related with the poster session?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so I would like only to, I mean, next year Portugal will be hosting the ASSW in Lisbon, and I would like, of course, to invite all of you to come to Lisbon to the meeting. And also, I would like to let you know that we have a call for sessions open. You can find it at the website. I will share the link to the website now in the chat box. But if you want to propose a session, you are most welcome to do it. So it is open until the end of April, the call for sessions. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me about it. Thanks, Alice. A bit of advertising here.
Yes. Well, thank you. Well, the floor is open if anybody would like to ask or say anything. Either out loud, you're welcome to unmute yourself, or in the chat box. Well, if nobody has anything else to talk about, then we might as well wrap up early, let you all have a little bit of a break before the next round of working group sessions. So thank you to all the people who presented posters today. This was very interesting and a great way to see posters, even if we couldn't be in the same room. If you have any feedback on the session or how the meeting is going generally, feel free to let me know. So we can learn from this experience. And I look forward to talking to you all in working group sessions and the plenaries coming up.
Yeah, to add to that, for more information about the summit and to see the upcoming sessions, you can go to the website, the AOS agenda website, which I just posted in the chat. And a recording of this session will also be available there. Thank you for joining.